Good morning and welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone had a good weekend and everyone used their time last week wisely and productively with the lab week to get our entrepreneurial marketing plan started. And hopefully, everyone got all of the assignments that were due, both the entrepreneurial exercise and the entrepreneurial marketing plan details of the product, service, or process you're going to be working on for the entrepreneurial marketing plan in, and which types of data, both primary and secondary, that you plan on using. So last week we just did a lab week to focus on our entrepreneurial marketing plan to get that ball rolling. So hopefully everyone has a good understanding of where we are in the class and has their projects picked out, and the ball is moving on that so you can continue working. Today we're going to be starting chapter 4. My plans are to try to get through it this class and on Wednesday, and then once again on Friday have a lab day. I'm not sure if we'll get through it all today and Wednesday, but if not, we'll get through it early on Friday and then spend the remainder of the time in the lab and to work on the entrepreneur exercise or on the entrepreneur marketing plan.
TV's.
Oh, of course it's not. Every time.
Because we have a lab week.
I would have done it. I would have done it anyways. I appreciate the excuse, but I mean, I think I've got it right one time this whole semester, if that. Okay, so chapter 4. Chapter 4 is dealing with understanding the customers and the competitors. So a little introduction here. One of the most important aspects of your planning process is to thoroughly understand your customers and competitors. Obviously, you're going to need to know the needs of the customers, obviously, because that's what we're trying to fulfill is the needs, give them an easier way to do something or a better way or a more efficient way. And you also need to know how the competition is satisfying the consumer needs. So it kind of gives you an idea, a little bit of a framework to work around to see what they're doing. And also by knowing what the competition is doing, it also gives us a chance to see maybe something that they're doing wrong or that they've overlooked. So it gives us a chance to kind of fill in a void or fill in a gap if there's something missing there. So obviously you have to both be in touch with the customers and the competition. Of these two, I think the customers is more important, obviously, because we're trying to sell to the customer and connect with the customer, not that of the competition. But it is important that we have a general idea of what's going on with our competition as well. So understand the customers and the competition. So more on understanding the customer. Behind every purchase is the customer, obviously. Without the customer, there would be no one to purchase any goods or service from us. So the customer is key. So we need to know who the customer is, what they buy, how they buy, and why they buy. Why do you think we need to know this as an entrepreneur?
Just so you can sell to them and so you're actually going to be profitable.
Right. I
You
mean,
know all this.
in order to be able to reach them and know what their wants and desires are, then we need to know what characteristics that make that person up, or what their traits are, or desires and likes are. So we obviously need to know who they are, what they buy, how they buy, and where they buy. Who they are, because obviously who someone is, it could be a female or a male or a different age category. What they buy obviously gives us an idea of a product or service that they already would be interested in, or an idea of something that we could tweak and maybe try to bring a new product or service in that it kind of resembles that. How they buy, do they do it online? Do they do it in the brick and mortar, the old brick and mortar stores, stuff of that sort? And why are they buying it? Is it an actual need, a necessity, or is it a luxury good? So stuff of that sort. So just getting to understand the customer. The consumer behavior is going to involve physical and mental behaviors, pre-purchase behavior, purchase behavior, and post-purchase behavior. Obviously, some physical and mental behaviors when looking into a product. If you're looking at something, you want to see maybe if it's going to physically work for you. Does it physically fit you? Like, what size shoe do you actually wear? Is it physically feasible for you? Mentally, is it something that you really have to have? You might mentally struggle, like, do I really need this? Should I spend money somewhere else? Is this what are other people going to think of me? Like just your mental perception of it. Pre-purchase behavior that can kind of tie in with your physical and mental behaviors. Kind of just looking around to see what type of brands are out there and just filling them out. Purchase behavior obviously is picking out something that you ultimately want and just buying it. And then the post-purchase behavior is are they ultimately satisfied with the good or service that they've purchased and with the continuing service of whatever product or service is from the company in which they bought it. So a little bit on consumer behavior there. Understanding the customer. So purchase decision process, obviously the stage a customer goes through and making choices about which products and services to buy. It says here that there's 5 stages in the purchase decision process. We have problem recognition. So obviously the consumer is gonna realize that they have a problem, right? When they're doing the decision process to purchase their good or service. Sorry, my eyes itching today. Um, Information search. So this is where they're going to be searching out the different brands and products, to see which type of information is most appealing to them. Alternative evaluation, seeing what different types of things are out there to choose from. Purchase decision, what they ultimately decide to purchase, and then, like I said, the post-purchase behavior, are they satisfied or not? The problem recognition stage, obviously this is the first stage of the purchase process for the consumer. Here the customer realizes they have a problem or need, which leads to a purchase. Obviously they're not going to buy anything if they don't feel that they have a desire or a need for a service or a good. Entrepreneurs can lead the customer to problem recognition through advertising. So a lot of times, a customer might feel like they don't really need anything, and all their wants and desires are pretty much taken care of. But then obviously they can see a commercial of something new that just hit the market, or maybe some type of food or dessert, and then all of a sudden they have a desire or a want for that product. So that's what they're talking about here. That the advertising can actually make the customer realize I have a problem or I have a desire. Um, here it says an example: you feel hungry, you either go to the store or grab fast food. Obviously, if you're hungry, you have a problem. You're hungry. So how do you resolve that? You go feed yourself. So, but obviously, you're saying what source of food are you going to have? Fast food? Is it dine in? You're going to go home, grocery store, whatever it might be. The information search stage. Here the customer searches for ways to fix the problem or the need. We have the internal search and the external search. Obviously the internal search would be something like, say for food, the food example. Internal search means something like you have some types of foods or restaurants that you can think of that you're familiar with already. So you're just internally searching like, ooh, do I want Subway or McDonald's or Burger King or whatever it might be. So you're internally searching. External search, you might be looking at advertisements or talking to a friend or a family member and getting some suggestions as to where you might want to go eat. Um, the information search will end up with some alternative measures to solve the problem. So obviously the information search, we're going to have multiple options to choose from. So we're going to have to ultimately solve which one we want to choose from. During the information search, gosh, I can't talk today. A customer will identify a variety of brands. Obviously, when we're looking to buy something, we're going to encounter numerous brands that is being offered to us. And the brands that the customer becomes aware of is also known as the brand awareness set. So obviously, if they become aware of it, or if it stood out to them, then they're aware of those brands. So that's what's known as the brand awareness set. Obviously, if your product is not part of this set, then there is no chance that the customers can even buy our product. So our goal is ultimately to make our product or service part of that brand awareness set. We need to do something to make it jump out of that customer. Maybe it could be the packaging that we use, or the product placement within the shelves, or on your website, or however it might be. So you just want to make that product or service appeal to that customer, so it becomes a part of the brand awareness set. An entrepreneur's first task is to ensure that your brand is part of the brand awareness set. Obviously, we just mentioned that. So far, am I moving too quick? Everything all right now? Everything's good? Next is the alternative evaluation stage. This is the stage where the customer is going to assess the brands, and they're going to be based on the specific criteria that is important to them. It can be objective or subjective, the criteria can be. The brands that most closely meet the customer's criteria become the brand consideration set, and that's the brands from the brand awareness set that the customer would consider purchasing. So first we have the brand awareness set, stuff that just sticks out to the customers, and then of that brand awareness set, they actually pick out, like they itemize some of the products or services from there, and from that set is what they're going to ultimately purchase from. So obviously we want to be part of the brand awareness set, but we also want to go even further from that and be part of the purchase set as well. Next, the purchase decision stage. After evaluating the alternatives, the customer will make the purchase decision and complete the purchase. The customer will compare the product to his or her expectations and either be satisfied or dissatisfied. So obviously we know that after going shopping and you've done looked through everything, tried on your clothes, or searched out whatever type of food you want to buy, or whatever it might be, whatever good or service you're buying, then obviously we ultimately have to make a decision if we ultimately want to purchase it. So we're going to buy it, and at the end we're either going to be satisfied or we're either going to be dissatisfied. So that's pretty much on the purchase decision stage. You buy it, and either you're happy or you're not. The final stage of the purchase decision is obviously the post-purchase stage. This is where the customer either repurchases your product or does not. So ultimately, we're going to want some recurring revenue. We want the customers to be happy and be a repeat customer. I mean, because return revenue is going to be critical, because it is ultimately hard to get new customers. So once we do grip a customer and reel one in, we want to try to retain the customer, because it's about getting new customers and customer retention. Your venture needs to repeat customer and recurrent revenue. Without both, it will be more difficult to secure future investment. So these investors want to actually see that you're going to have recurring revenue, because they know that if you're only going to make one sale and that's it, you're not going to be servicing your product or service, or you're not going to get any repeats, then ultimately it's going to be hard for you to have a nice revenue stream, and your business model is not really that efficient or that feasible. So we definitely want to make sure that the customer is satisfied. In addition to understanding the customer purchase decision, the process of it, the entrepreneur must also understand the following factors: the psychological, the social cultural, situational, and the marketing mix influences. And we'll get more into each one of these 4 areas here moving forward. So some psychological influences, they affect why and how the customer behaves in terms of his or her purchase behavior. Psychological influences include personality or lifestyle, your motivation, your learning, perception, attitudes, and involvement. We'll start out first with lifestyle. Lifestyle obviously is a mode of living that is identified by how people spend their time and resources, what they consider important, and what they think of themselves and the world around them. Obviously, I think everyone knows what a lifestyle is. It's the life people lead. It's what they place value on, like they just said, what they spend their time on, where they choose to go. So it's just an ultimate lifestyle. Some people choose to party. Some people go to church. Some people, are lifelong learners. Some people choose not to learn. It's just a lifestyle. The psychographics is the analysis of the consumer lifestyles, and it provides insight into consumer behavior. So with this right here, we're just wanting to see the differences between people's lifestyles and just see what their tendencies are. And people with different lifestyles and personalities will have different buying behaviors, obviously. If someone's a lifelong learner, then they're going to be more apt to buy a book or a software program to teach them whatever functions they're trying to learn, or whatever topic they're trying to learn from. If someone tends to drink alcohol, then obviously they're going to buy alcoholic beverages, whereas someone that doesn't drink alcohol is not going to buy alcohol beverages. So obviously different lifestyles and personalities have a direct bearing on people's purchase behaviors. or purchase decisions. Motivation is the force that causes us to act, including satisfying a need. So obviously, the level of someone's motivation is a factor, because a lot of people that maybe lack motivation aren't going to be very likely probably to go and spend time walking around a mall and shop because they're just too lazy to get out there and do it. They don't really care about having a new outfit. They're just lazy. They're complacent. So someone's motivation is important. Physiological needs such as the basic needs like food, water, and sex. So obviously, people's physiological needs. People like different types of food. Some people are really health conscious. Some people really aren't that health conscious. So just stuff of that sort. Um, Psychological needs, the higher level needs, esteem and achievement. A lot of people like to feel like accomplished and know that they can accomplish something, achieve something, whether it be lifting weights and bench pressing an X amount of weight, or running a sprint in a certain amount of time, or passing a state board, or whatever it might be, graduating from college, or anything it could be. So psychological needs. Most successful ventures are based on psychological needs. So here they're saying that if you focus on psychological needs instead of needs of people that they actually have to have, then most ventures are going to be more successful in that. Why, I'm not really sure. I think the reason why it probably would be is because your basic needs, like your toothbrushes and toothpaste, the decisions are just so easy and routine. It's so such a crowded market already. It's hard to kind of just steal people away from their natural habits because it's almost just a habit. And when you focus on the psychological needs, then you can kind of tailor it or differentiate yourself from the competitors, because you can kind of gear it towards certain people's personalities or traits, if that makes sense. It's less of a bogged down industry. My head just went blank. I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of. But you get where I'm going at with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So learning, that's the process in which behavior capabilities are changed as a result of the experience. So obviously, as people learn and develop new habits and tendencies, then their purchase behavior could change, because they might have before bought food that had gluten in it and real fatty foods and stuff. And as they become more educated about health issues or diabetes and stuff of that sources, foods that could cause that, then maybe they might become more health conscious and start buying different foods as they learn. Behavioral learning, the process of developing automatic responses to a situation built through repeated exposure to it. So obviously, if we go and touch something and it's hot, we're going to learn real quick that it's hot. So behavioral learning, we learn from our behavior of touching it that it's hot to stay away. We know if we jump in a pool of water, we're going to get wet. So we learn these things just by just developing our responses by just coming in contact with them. Cognitive learning, this is making connections between two or more ideas, or simply observing the outcomes of other behaviors and adjusting your own. And entrepreneurs can influence this type of learning through repetition and advertising. So cognitive learning obviously is just all mentally, like you're kind of, like I said, you're observing. You can observe a group of people and see if they do something ignorant or something they shouldn't have, and they ended up getting hurt over it. Like, for example, maybe watching somebody go 55 miles an hour around a turn that says go 25, and they flip their car and go over the guardrail. Obviously, you learn from that. You're going to not go as fast. You're going to pay attention to the sign next time. And it says entrepreneurs can kind of hone in on this right here on the cognitive learning through advertising. So if we remember earlier how I said that people might not feel that they have a need or a desire, but once they actually watch an advertisement, they might otherwise think that they do, because they just, for some reason, it just sparked an interest in them. So I think that's how this can kind of relate with the cognitive learning, that you really think you're okay, but then as more and more you see this advertising, you kind of start to think to yourself just mentally, okay, well, maybe I do need this product. Maybe I'm not all good right now. Maybe I am. If I had this, I could be able to do this or successfully achieve this. So cognitive learning is also an important psychological need. Brand loyalty. The favorable attitude toward consistent purchase of a single brand over time. It's the result from positive reinforcement of a previous action. And customers that are loyal to your brand allow your venture to survive and grow. And it also aids in attracting future funding. So obviously, I know we talked earlier in the semester about how important a brand is, how it could be like the single most important thing for you as an entrepreneur to really get your brand out there. If you have a really strong brand, obviously you're more likely to become part of the brand awareness set and that brand purchasing set that they ultimately purchase from. And ultimately, we want to make our brand a loyal brand. You know, we want it to be good, tried and true. We want if someone orders, say we're selling shoes, if they order a size 11, we want to make sure that the specs for size 11 is the same. We don't want to send it out half the time being like an 8, half the time being like a 12. If it's an 11, we want it to be an 11. You know, so brand loyalty is huge here because that's going to be has a huge correlation between repeat customers and repeat revenue, recurring revenue. So the brand loyalty is it's a really important topic here. So ultimately, in order to achieve brand loyalty, then we need to just develop the best product or service we can and put a good brand, something that's going to stick out to the consumer or the customer. Perception, that's the process by which we select, organize, and interpret stimuli. The book has a Cadillac example. What they're saying by the Cadillac example, some people might perceive driving a Cadillac as being accomplished, you know, that they think, oh man, they've really made it. They're driving a Cadillac, that's a top of the line vehicle. And others might just think, oh gosh, you know, why are you doing that's a waste? You know, why you need a Cadillac? Just drive a Buick or drive a whatever or Chevy or whatever it might be. So perception obviously is going to be a big take on that. Selective perception, people expose themselves only to selective information and intend to comprehend and retain only some information. An entrepreneur must be sure to expose the customer to product information, make sure the customer pays attention and remembers it, and we want the customer to act on our information. So selective perception, I know a lot of people, I'm sure you've probably heard the term selective hearing. When people, like if your mom's asking you to do something or your girlfriend or wife or whoever's asking you to do something, it's really not something you're interested in or you really don't want to do. So you have selective hearing is what people like to say. You just select not to hear that because you're not interested. But if it's something you want to hear, then it's like you can't even let them get the sentence out. It's like, oh yeah, I got you, you know. So selective perception is kind of the same thing, like selective hearing. You're selective onto how you perceive things, or actually what you perceive, and ignore other things. Attitudes. This is learned predispositions to respond to an object or class of objects in a consistently favorable or unfavorable way. I think everyone knows what an attitude is. It can be positive or negative. Some people with negative attitudes, it could be toxic. It could be, you know, contagious. You know, you could have 5 people within a really good mood, and you get 1 or 2 people in a bad mood. It can just ruin it for the whole group. You know, it can really be contagious and be effective. Um, so attitudes is obviously really important. Important implications. It's possible to change attitudes over time by providing new information. So obviously, if someone has a certain attitude towards some type of, like, so maybe they have an attitude towards soccer, they just don't care for soccer that much, maybe because they're just not that good at it. But if they practice and practice and start becoming more successful at the sport, then maybe their perception or their attitude towards the sport of soccer might change because they've actually become a better soccer player. So obviously, you can change people's attitudes over time. Attitudes are not directly observable. Obviously, attitudes a lot of times you don't really know where it's being like derived from or spawned from, so you can't really observe the attitude. A lot of times, some people can do a good job at hiding their attitude, you know, and you're not really seeing what they're truly feeling. Attitudes are related to behavior. Obviously, if someone's in a bad mood, they have a bad attitude, then their behavior could reflect so. They could be destructive or just be loud and screaming or breaking stuff, whatever it might be. Or if they're in a good attitude, good mood, then they're gonna be happy, maybe laughing, telling jokes, and just free caring. So attitudes is very important as well. Involvement, the degree to which something is central to your sense of self, as well as the personal, social, and economic significance of the purchase of the customer. And customers that are involved may skip or minimize steps in the purchase decision process. So involvement, obviously, if a customer's already involved with your brand, if they've already been buying shoes from you, then obviously that purchase decision process that we went through earlier, the different steps of trying out different brands and all this, problem recognition, all that, they might skip a couple of those steps and just go right to purchasing it. They see they have a problem, okay, my shoes wore out, bam, I'm going to buy another pair just like it. You know, they skip all those steps because they know they're familiar, they're involved with the brand, they're familiar with it. Extended problem solving, known as EPS. And this is going to involve a high purchase involvement. So a good example would be purchasing a car or a home. So these are high ticket items, right? So high monetary items. So obviously, if we're going to spend a lot of money on something, then we want to make sure it's exactly what we want. So if it's a house, we're going to need to inspect it, appraise, you know, do our homework in the neighborhood comps and what school districts and stuff of that sort. If it's a vehicle, we're going to see the gas mileage and the GVW and just the brand and see what type of stuff the manufacturer has to say of it. So we're going to be really more focused and really do more homework when we're doing one of the extended problem solvings. When dealing with purchasing one of the high ticket items, which makes sense. You know, we're not just going to walk up and be like, oh yeah, just give me that car. I don't care what brand it is. I don't care what kind of gas mileage it is. It's $50,000 here. Just give it to me. That's, you know, I mean, some people that are really wealthy might do that, you know, but for the most part, you know, 99% of people, remind me tomorrow. Most people are going to do the extended problem solving when purchasing a car or home. Next is the limited problem solving, the LPS. This is moderate involvement. And a good example here would be like choosing a restaurant for lunch. So, you know, a lot of times when you get hungry, you know, you kind of get picky on what type of food you want. You might have had a hamburger yesterday, so you don't want one today. You know, you want some options, so you might be moderately involved. You know, you might have a say so in where you want to have lunch instead of just letting someone else pick because you might not care for that type of food. Routine problem solving, so this is known as RPS, low involvement in this decision process of purchasing. And an example here is like purchasing toothpaste. So we know, obviously, we know what we use for toothpaste. We might try a new brand, but even then, it's going to be something simple. It's a cheap tube of toothpaste. If we don't like it, we toss it out, get a new one. You know, but for the most part, if you use Crest or Colgate, whatever it might be, we're just going to walk in, grab it, and roll. You know, it's habit or habit forming. So it makes sense on the different levels of decision making based upon the different tiers of what product or service you're buying. Next, we'll get into social cultural influences. This involves the customer's formal and informal relationships with others, which can affect the customer's purchase behavior. The social cultural influences include demographics, cultural and subcultural, social class, reference groups, and personal influences. And we'll get into a few more of these, or get into each one of these in more detail. So demographics, that describes a population according to the characteristics. These characteristics could be the age, gender, income, education, occupation, marital status, population size, population growth rate, stuff of that sort. An entrepreneur must understand the demographics of the market in which they want to operate. Something as simple as age or occupation can affect what the customers purchase. So obviously demographics is very important here. We have to know the demographics. Obviously the amount of income, like it says here, if we're trying to sell really luxury products to a low demographic area, it's not going to be successful. Maybe we're trying to market some stuff that's going to be tailored towards like the singles crowd, like maybe selling like spring break trips or something like that. You know, married people aren't going to be too concerned with that type of stuff. So the demographics is really important for the entrepreneur to understand the target market. The culture, this incorporates the set of values, customs, traditions, ideas, and attitudes that a society possesses and transmits from one generation to the next. This is probably the largest sphere of influence that affects the individual consumer behavior. And the book gives an example of mutton burgers at McDonald's in India. And the reason why they have the mutton burgers is because the cow's considered a delicacy over in India. So that's why they have mutton burgers. So culture is the largest sphere of influence that's going to affect the individual consumer behavior. Subcultures is going to be a subgroup within a larger culture. Ethnic subcultures. Cultural rituals is going to be universal patterns of behavior. Symbolic rituals like marriage or death or birthdays, stuff of that sort. So I think we're all familiar with those type of cultural rituals. And then other common rituals, brushing the teeth or taking a shower, we're pretty familiar with those rituals as well. Entrepreneurs may attempt to establish new rituals, communicating via social media rather than snail mail or the creation of a computer. So just think about those rituals. So how many people nowadays, if you want to communicate with someone, are you gonna get a pen and a paper out and write them a letter and then go to the post office or stick it in the mailbox and flip your little flag up for the mailman to take it to them? No, you're gonna send them a text or an email, or you're gonna just get on Facebook or something of that sort. So um, just new rituals and just changing cultural boundaries or cultural trends. Um, Entrepreneurs can also focus on existing rituals. Music used to only be used by CDs, and now we have Spotify and Apple Music. So obviously that's changed as well with the culture. I remember the good old days of running around when I was like 16, 17, before like MP3s and all that stuff. And I think the MP3s might have just been starting to come out, but I had the CD player. I don't think most cars nowadays don't even have a CD player, but I had the CD player, and we had these visors that went on the little, or the little CD holders that went in the visors. And I remember when I'd go around a turn, they'd be so like you're supposed to just put one in each slot. Obviously, if I'd have like 10 in one, go around a turn, they'd all shoot across the thing. One day, like half of them went out my passenger windows. So needless to say, I was probably going too fast around the turn, but how nice it is now just to just push a little button or just see a little list and pick what you want to play instead of having all those pointless CDs just floating around your car. I know that was a little off subject, but
You have thousands of songs just at your fingertips.
at your fingertips instead of like 10 or 12 on one CD, depending on the length of track, so it's nice. BBDO Worldwide discovered the 5 most common rituals across the world. Preparing for battle. Preparing for battle, in this sense, it's not really preparing to go to war for the most part. This is what they say it is, but so preparing for battle, it's not preparing for like going to war like in Iraq or something like that, like we have, or World War II. So what do you think preparing for battle would be? Now remember, these are the most common rituals across the world.
I'm really not sure.
It's just preparing for your regular day. They just call it preparing for battle, preparing for your day. So most people in the household wake up, they're rushed. They have to get to work, they have to get their kids ready for school, or get the dog ready, or whatever it might be. Get your clothes ready, eat. You know what I mean? Get yourself ready for the day. So that's what preparing for battle is. Feasting, obviously, eating lunch, dinner, breakfast, whatever meal it is. It's people coming together, sharing and eating. Sexing up, I think we all know what sexing up is. That's pretty common around the world. Um, Returning to camp, obviously, is when you come back home from work. So at the end of your day, most people will come home, kick the shoes off, maybe throw on some pajamas, relax. The book says there's about 4 hours of return to camp during that time that you can target to people of what you try to get their attention in during that time. And protecting yourself for the future is just your nighttime routines. Brushing your teeth so your teeth stays good. Setting your alarm so you can wake up in the morning. You might, read the Bible at night, or you might pray, or whatever it might be. Setting yourself up. So that's what these 5 different steps are. And the reason they're of importance to us is because, obviously, we want to know what people are doing different stages of the daytime. So if we know what they're doing to prepare for battle, we know we can try to tailor like toothpaste, deodorant, shampoo, conditioner, aftershave, shaving products, stuff of that sort. Stuff they're going to use in the morning time while they're getting ready. Food, obviously, feasting, preparing for food if you want to sell them food, whether healthy or unhealthy, whatever it might be. So that's why those different stages are important to the entrepreneur, so they know, you know, what type of products to tailor to a person within different points of their day. Social class. This is the relatively permanent homogenous division in society in which people sharing similar values, interests, and behavior can be grouped. It can be determined by occupation, source of income, or education. Um, there's going to be three major categories of social class. Obviously, we have the upper class, the middle class, and the lower class. I think everyone's heard of that throughout their life, probably numerous times. Um, so, just social class is obviously going to be important. So, entrepreneurs obviously must figure out how social class can affect consumer behavior. Think about products that you would be associated with different social classes. So obviously someone in the upper social class, you might expect to see people with private jets and Bentleys or Beamers or stuff of that sort, maybe going to really being members at really prestige country clubs or stuff like that, or restaurants, or um, people in middle class might drive like your Suburbans or like a nice little Mercedes or just something of that sort. Um, so obviously lower class, they just you get the point. It's going to be less expensive items in each one of the classes. So they obviously have to figure out how social class can affect consumer behavior. Obviously, the lower the social class, the more they're going to be spending their money on necessities, less on luxury items because they don't have as much money to go around. So they're going to be more focused on surviving for the most part and buying cheaper goods and spreading that dollar out. Middle class, kind of somewhere in between. They're going to spend a little more on luxury goods. Be a little less stressed when it comes to just their everyday necessities because they've already got that for the most part. And obviously the upper class, they're just balling. They just don't care. They just do what they want and spend what they want. Invest in what they want. So just knowing the different social classes is key. Reference groups, people to whom an individual looks as a basis for self-appraisal or as a source of personal standards. Important influence for luxury products, but not so much for necessities. The example the book gives is if you're going out to dinner with friends, you might call one of your friends and be like, "Hey, what are you wearing?" Just to get an idea to see how they're going to be wearing, see what the dress code is, per se, I guess you could say. So, why do we think that this would be an important influence for luxury products, but not so much for necessities?
Well, beggars can't be choosers, so if you're only focused on the necessities, you're not going to be too concerned about what your friends are wearing.
Right, you're just more worried about being able to obtain those necessities and just keep on moving on with it. And obviously, luxury products, if you're going to be concerned with what your friends are doing, that obviously is more concerned with luxury products. You want to kind of be in with the fads and the trends and stuff of that sort. There are four important reference groups for entrepreneurs. A membership group, this is the group in which you belong, a fraternity, a sorority, etc. Maybe a member at a church or something of that sort. Um, the aspiration group, so this is a group in which you wish to be in. So there might be a certain professional group that you want to be in. Myself personally, I want to be a part of the AICPA, and be a member of that one day, and be a CPA, be a part of that group of CPAs. So hopefully, one day I'll be able to aspire to reach that level. Um, Disassociative group, and this is obviously a group we want to distance ourselves from. So if there's a group of people, I know growing up we've all heard this, stay away from that group of people, they're trouble. They'll bring you down, they're going to get you in trouble. So obviously you want to try to stay away from groups that are going to be negative or bring you down or into the wrong type of activities, because birds of a feather tend to flock together. So you want to place yourself around people that you aspire to be like, and people that are successful and that have their stuff together and that aren't breaking the law and are upstanding citizens. Family, think about brands that you buy. Does your family purchase the same brands? A lot of times they bite, a lot of times they might not. I know a lot of times, if you grew up because your mom bought Crest toothpaste, chances are you're probably going to buy Crest toothpaste because you're used to it because that's what your family did. So these are some important reference groups for the entrepreneur just to be familiar with, to know the difference between them. Opinion leaders, these are individuals who exert direct or indirect social influence over others. They're considered to be knowledgeable about or are users of particular products and services. But it says that only about 10% of the customers or consumers are actually going to be opinion leaders. The other 90 is just follows along with the trends. Opinion leaders are going to be widespread in the purchase of cars, clothing, club memberships, electronics, and vacations. So, what does that kind of relate to of what we just said on the other page when it says opinion leaders are widespread in the purchase of these relative items right here?
What am I trying to relate it to?
It's like we just talked about. It's related to opinion leaders. It kind of goes hand in hand with the luxury goods compared to the necessity goods. So obviously, opinion leaders are going to be more correlated with the purchases of cars and clothing because those are more luxury goods. Obviously, clothing is a necessity, but it can also be known for being a luxury good as well. Let's see here. Do one more slide and then we'll call it a day. Is that cool? Um, Identify reaching and influencing opinion leaders is a major challenge for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs often use sports figures, celebrities, selected media sources that feel they will reach their target market, and inviting those they believe are opinion leaders to try their product for free. Okay, so yeah, um, so why would entrepreneurs usually use like sports figures or celebrities to try to market their products?
Because people really look up to them, so they see Miley Cyrus using this new brand new product. All the Miley Cyrus fans are gonna be like, "Oh, I want that too."
Right. Yeah, I gotta have it because Miley has it. So, yeah. So they're gonna try to use sports figures, celebrities, or media sources. Like, say if they know like older people probably tend to be at home and watching the news a lot during the daytime, so they're going to probably target commercials during a certain period of time when they know that that demographic of people is going to be watching, the TV or watching the news, and they can try to tailor those commercials towards those wants or desires. So stuff of that sort, just trying to reach those influencing people, so ultimately they can kind of just drag the other 90% of the customers along with them. That is all I have for today. Obviously, we're out of time. I believe we'll be able to finish chapter 4 on Wednesday. So Wednesday we'll get through chapter 4. Let's just take a split second here, a quick second, and look at Moodle. So yesterday we had the last entrepreneur exercise for chapter 3 and the entrepreneur marketing plan details due. We're in chapter 4 this week, so like I said, we're about halfway through chapter 4. Wednesday we'll finish the content, and then we have the next entrepreneur exercise for chapter 4, and it is going to be due Sunday, February 23rd at 11:59 p.m. So we still have 13 days and some change to work on this. Just wanted to give everyone heads up of where we are, where we're going. So Wednesday we'll finish chapter 4 content, PowerPoint, and then Friday we'll have a lab day to work on both the entrepreneur exercise and the entrepreneur marketing plan. If anyone has any questions or concerns with anyone, please feel free to email me or stop by my office hours, and I'll be happy to help with anything. I hope everyone has a good day, and thank you for your time.